Good day, fine folks, and welcome to Booghy Plays. Today I'm playing with questions. I'm not playing a game. Today I'll be interviewing Maddox from five Games to Doomsday. I'm going to interview the interviewer. This is going to be fun and challenging for me. So, without further ado, let's go and meet our guests today. Welcome, Ben, to Booghy Plays.
Hello. Am I live? Am I on TV? This is very exciting. I always wanted to be on TV as a kid, and now I can be on TV whenever I want. And what the audience don't know is that from my bottom half, I'm wearing absolutely nothing. So don't ask me to stand up.
I will not do that, especially if you warned me in the beginning.
I don't think YouTube allows such monstrous things.
No, I don't.
On its streams.
No,
I don't think.
I don't think so either. So, welcome, Ben. I've been watching your, let's say, podcasts, your interviews for a while now, and I said, oh. I started doing more things in English, and I said, okay, let's try to do the interview series with some people which I admire, which I like in this industry. And you're the first guest.
This is very exciting. It's only uphill from here.
Yep.
So, I mean, if you want, we can do it in Romanian if you wish.
That would be interesting.
I mean, I don't speak Romanian, so I mean, it would be interesting. I know one word in Romanian,
which is
noroc.
Noroc, with his cheers.
Exactly. It's the only word you need to know. I should need to know how to order beer in Romanian too, but I don't.
Well, if you're ever in Romania, we're going to take you to some beer tours.
Fantastic. Where are you? Are you in Bucharest?
I'm around Bucharest. Yeah.
I had one of the worst nights of my life in Bucharest. when Liverpool were managed by Roy Hodgson, we went to see Liverpool versus Steaua Bucharest.
Oh, it's a long time ago.
And there was at least at the time there was no roof on the stadium, and it was chucking down with rain. And we played out a 1-1 draw against Steaua Bucharest. And then I got up late in the morning because I forgot the time zones, missed my flight, and had to pay €400 for a flight back to Vienna. Wonderful!
Well, I say come back and you'll have a better time.
Yes.
We're not that bad. So, again, thank you for coming, and let's start the interview. I say, I hope you're feeling fine in our virtual game room, in the virtual comfy chairs. I hope.
Yeah, the virtual scotch is lovely.
I'm glad.
What people can't see is the mound of virtual drugs just off screen.
And alcohol and no pants.
Exactly. It's a hell of a party.
So, let's start with my first question is, it's a bigger question. Who is Ben Maddox? And let's start where were you born?
So I was born, I was born in a hospital in Stourport in Worcestershire, the United Kingdom, which very shortly after I was born became a mental hospital. I'm not sure if there's a connection there. And then I grew up in a beautiful rural area of the world, Tenbury Wells, it's called, a town of 3,000 people. And this is true, it's 3,000 people, but we have 13 pubs because there's nothing to do there except look at sheep and drink.
I think Wales is the higher part of the United Kingdom, no?
Well, it's not Wales, it's Tenbury Wells. It's 18...
Wells.
It's 18 miles away from Wales, and I do have Welsh ancestry, but I studied. I went to college in Wales, and they made it very, very clear that I'm not Welsh.
Yeah, it's important to them, probably.
Very much.
So, how did the childhood in Tenbury Wells shaped you?
I mean, it's a strange thing because as soon as I got to sort of 12 or 13, my whole life was focused on getting the hell out of there because, oh, what a place. And so I guess it molded my spirit of travel. So I live in Berlin now, and I lived in Vienna before, and I've lived all over England. And I guess when you live in a place as sort of abject as Tenbury Wells, you learn to not become attached to places very much. And I guess that's what it did to me.
Yeah. When did you start playing?
So I was thinking about this because sort of I got into hobby board games kind of quite late in my mid 30s. But I realized as a kid I was thinking about this for a piece I was writing, and I played a lot of sort of Hero Quest in the 80s. And then, when I was a teenager, the Super NES was my sort of gaming of choice. But I ended up, a friend of mine just said, "Do you want to play this thing?" And we ended up playing Call of Cthulhu role-playing game, which absolutely blew my mind. I thought it was the best thing in the world, and it got me into Lovecraft. And then I subsequently went on and read a lot of Lovecraft stuff, and I think it sort of primed me. And then when I moved to Berlin, I'd been living in Vienna for 8 years, and I moved to Berlin, and I was kind of like, I was in my mid-30s, and, you can't do the same things in your mid-30s as you can in your mid-20s, right? So I wanted a hobby that would sort of fill my evenings, but ensure that I didn't die of cirrhosis of the liver by 40. So I got into games. I mean, the not drinking thing didn't work at all, unfortunately. I seem to attract alcoholics like a magnet, and yeah. And then I got into games, and it was really interesting. I played Pandemic, and it really was like the proverbial bolt of lightning, right?
So
very quickly, just this is amazing, and that was the path that's got me to be on Booghy's Place, which is the highlight of my career thus far.
It's Booghy. Booghy is not Booghy. It's Booghy, but
I mean, I'm English.
Yeah.
We're speaking in English. I guess I get to choose the way things are pronounced. I'm the native speaker, so you can come to me and ask for pronunciation advice anytime you wish.
Okay, but Booghy is Romanian. Okay. So you practically modern you met modern board games during your 30s.
Exactly.
And your first game was Pandemic, as you said.
Yeah. So I played sort of previously. I'd played Catan and Carcassonne, but that was kind of they hadn't. I hadn't consciously got turned on to board games, and then a few years later, I met Pandemic. And I did what I think a lot of people do when they're looking to sort of work out what game they want to buy for their first sort of modern board game. And so I watched a lot of Dice Tower videos and things, a lot of top 100 lists.
And that's what year?
2012, I guess.
2012.
And yeah, it's the idea of a cooperative game really appealed to me because it seemed so strange. I'd never heard of such a thing previously, so I thought, and that would be a nice way to sort of sit round a table and not be contentious. I kind of hardly ever play co-op games anymore, but it was Pandemic that certainly got me into the hobby, I think.
Okay. And so now we all start with different types of games. I started with Catan because that was the simplest way to enter the hobby. It's probably the most spread game all around the world. So yeah, I started with Catan, but sure, afterwards you discover a world. After you discovered this world, what path did you take? What kind of a gamer?
So my sort of initial thing was because I'm an actor, and which is basically a synonym for having a big mouth, and so I started very much with games kind of like Coup and The Resistance, social deduction-y stuff, very over-the-table stuff, which, requires an element of sort of talking and all of that. But
social interaction, social
exactly, yeah. But
being
what
that
really
the game is not on the table, is around
it's
the
above the
table,
table. Yeah,
above the
absolutely.
table. Yeah.
But what really surprised me is very, very quickly I got into Euro games. And I was never one of those people who kind of played Farmville on Facebook or anything like that. And it was really as surprising to me as anything that I found converting corn into money, into points, incredibly satisfying. And I still remain to this day absolutely bloody terrible. My game group is full of very process oriented people. A lot of computer programmers tend to play
Yep.
board games, and they're
Yep.
very process oriented, and they're very good at this kind of thing. And I get absolutely whooped every time we sit around to play an Alexander Pfister game or something like this. But that was the path I discovered early, sort of Stefan Feld, Uwe Rosenberg kind of stuff. And that's the path I've kind of pretty much consistently remained on ever since. I think for a number of reasons, I think they're probably they're games that value their design, I think, more than other types of games. And so they tend to offer a more consistent play experience, I would say, because
Over a long span of time.
yeah, exactly. I mean, we were talking about we played a game the other night. And we were talking about publishers, and they mentioned the publisher. I'm not going to mention their name here because we were saying pretty rude things about them. But this publisher very much focuses on theme and theme through things like production and really nice art, and they seem to consider game mechanisms a secondary consideration. Whereas, as I'm concerned, and we were talking about the recent, we're also talking about the recent Castles of Burgundy Kickstarter, which is obscene in my
Obscene. Yeah, exactly.
and the beauty about these Alea games that cost €30, Castles of Burgundy being one of them, is they're just absolute masterclasses in how to put mechanisms together and then from seemingly sterile things produce an awful lot of fun, because Castles of Burgundy is glorious and doesn't need all the
bells and whistles.
it doesn't but a friend of mine has backed it because he's a computer programmer in Berlin. And so if you're a computer programmer in Berlin, you basically live like a king and can spend all of your money on silly stuff. So I will play it, but I mean, I have the normal €30 version, and I can't see there's going to be €100 worth of difference in experience.
Yeah, probably. I don't. Depends on what you value. If you really value the tactile experience, probably it will be a better experience. But if you value the what you say, watching mechanisms go together, then you will not care about.
Well, I'm controversial on this. I don't think art and componentry is at all important, really. Apart from the first couple of times you play a game, after the language that games speak are mechanisms. And when you first play a game, you go, "Oh, the piece is nice," and all of this. But once you get to know the game, all the board and pieces are a way of tracking your current game state. They're not about immersion. It is about mechanics, and it is about those mechanics that live inside your head. Essentially, once you get really familiar with a game, you needn't have a board or components, really. It's only because we can't remember a game state that we need them. So I think it's nice to have sort of nice stuff, but I mean, a great example, one of my favorite games is a great example of how you can just overproduce things, and that's Dogs of War. Completely, I think part of the reason it was not as successful as it could have been is because it's massively overproduced. And it seems inconsistent with the experience. And I think we'll find that with the Castles of Burgundy. Those kind of very tight Euro games don't lend themselves particularly well to this massively overblown Ameritrash production experience, I would say.
Yeah, a Simon production.
Right.
Yeah. So you are practically calling yourself a Euro gamer these days through and through.
I mean, I play everything. I'm not against playing anything, but that's where my sweet spot is. Yeah, sort of midweight Euros is where I'm happiest, I think.
I don't want to talk about me, but I really enjoy.
Oh, please tell us about you.
But no, you said that you don't care about components. I'm a bit on the. I like. First is mechanism. Then if you can give me a good production, I'm really on board. You know.
It's a bonus rather than a necessity.
Yeah, exactly. But I look for a good production. I only look for a good production. So when did you start the transition from just being a board gamer to being a reviewer and then an interviewer?
So it was kind of very soon after I got into gaming. I think there's this thing, once you get really into something, and it was the first kind of thing I got really into in ages, you know. Because you discover a lot of things that you get really into as a teenager. You know, you find your music style and all of that. And I got into football when I was a kid, but I hadn't got into something quite so much as I'd got into board games in years. And the thing is, when human beings really get into something, they want to proselytize, right? They want to make all of their mates get into it too, which is a mistake I learned to rectify fairly quickly, because some people just don't want to. Exactly. I found out, and so I started off writing sort of a weekly blog on BGG years ago. It's still up there, and I did about, I don't know, 10 or 12 pieces of writing, and it's a lot of work, isn't it? So
yeah, it is. Writing is a lot of work.
Writing's a lot of work. Yep. Sort of getting on the end of a microphone and talking out of your rear end is fairly simple, I think. And so
yeah, but it's far simpler than writing. Far simpler.
Absolutely. So I had a couple of podcast projects, and the one thing about getting older is you are able to recognize aspects to your character, and you're able to recognize whether you can change them or not. And I discovered that I don't play well with others particularly. And so being in projects with other people and always inevitably ends up in disaster, because I'm nothing if not the most horrendous human being who's ever lived. And so
you're an actor. You're an actor. You have exactly. Ego. Your ego is very, very high.
Yeah. I'm completely self-obsessed.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's and it makes sense, because there's no one on the planet as good as me. So I mean, it's an obvious reason to be self-obsessed. And so I decided I wanted to do a project that I could do on my own, basically, that I could administer on my own, and I could have all of the decisions, and so it would live or die by my decisions. And so I stole a format from a classic BBC radio show, and then I changed it enough so the BBC couldn't sue me. And then I started, and the thing is, I realized that. So it's interesting. I say this a lot. It sounds awfully pretentious, but I nevertheless think it's true. Is that board games are slowly being recognized as an art form, as opposed to just a silly little thing kids do around a table. And if you go back to the sort of origin of novels in the late 1600s, early 1700s, they were very much considered the same thing, right? They were considered something to be read by children and things like this. And so you don't have any evidence of the people who created them. And of course, back in that time, people didn't do interviews anyway. So, and the thing is, we live, I think, in the nascent stages of board games as art. It is my hope that kind of in 50 years, they're far more well regarded than they are now in terms of a sort of serious pursuit that people can do. But the point is, if that's the case in 50 years, all of these trailblazers, all of these super important people who've laid the foundations, you know, people like Richard Garfield, people like Rainer Knizia, they're all going to be, unless, you know, the singularity comes and we all get sucked into the web, they're all going to be dead, aren't they? So, my goal primarily has been to try and chronicle those people. My goal, and whether I succeed or not, is completely nothing to do with me. Essentially, it's for other people to decide. But my goal is to try and get the definitive interview, the definitive retrospect of who these people are, what their attitudes are to the things that they create. And so in the future, you know, when Bob Jenkins is the new top board game designer and he's talking about these old games from Reiner Knizia from the 1990s, there is a resource people can go back and, you know, you've got Reiner Knizia's voice on tape talking about his life and who he is as a designer. And that's always my goal, to try and do the definitive interview of all of these people. And if it works, it works. If it doesn't, it doesn't. That's not for me to decide, I guess.
Yep. I have a question for you.
Yes, I am. I am often told I look like George Clooney, and yes, I do think I'm better looking.
Well, that was not my question for you.
You liar! You liar! I saw it in your eyes.
What is fun to you? What fun means to you?
Well, it's all different character. So I remember once I was guesting on a podcast. When I started podcasting, a friend had a podcast, short-lived thing. It was pretty good actually, and he should have carried it on, but he didn't. And I was very snobby about the idea of fun. I said good games aren't fun. They're satisfying. There's something deeper and more profound. And I realized that was just incredibly sort of elitist and snobby. Fun has different characters, right?
Yep.
The fun I get from watching a football match, the fun I get from sitting around shooting the breeze with friends around a table, the fun I get from playing the Resistance, and the fun I get from playing Trajan are all varieties of fun, but they fulfill different needs, right? And you can play Concordia and feel like you've had the greatest experience of your life,
with your head on the table.
Exactly. Or you can have a couple of beers and have an argument about football or politics and laugh uproariously, and they are both sort of varieties of fun. And I guess my what is fun is the thing that amuses you at the time, I guess.
It is a matter of how should I put it?
Of context.
Context. Now, most of the people, fun is the clown.
Sure. I mean, people, when you say the word fun, it's very loaded, right?
Yeah.
It seems that it's silly, but it isn't. Sitting and working out a puzzle that Stefan Feld has put in front of you is also fun. The fun of being completely immersed in a project. And, you know, sometimes when I'm editing a show, especially I've started doing live play, actual play role-playing stuff on my podcast channel. And a lot of that is sort of creative editing as opposed to editing for time. So it's, you know, sourcing sound effects and working out sort of how to create a world, create an aural world.
Yep.
Yeah. I mean, that kind of, you get into it and you lift your head and it's been 3 hours and the time has whizzed by. That's also fun. It's just the character of it's different, you know.
Now, what is your most played game?
Oh, gold. That's interesting, isn't it? Well, probably. So it's probably Skull King, which is amazing. It's a trick-taking game, and it's absolutely fantastic. But that's a short one, so it's obvious that a game like that. So often after I've had a big game, I'll play something like that as a short game. Of longer games, it might be Le Havre, which is amazing. Yeah, it probably is Le Havre. When I really can't think of anything to play, and someone comes round, and the wonderful thing about Le Havre is it scales beautifully. And so you can play it with 2 players, and it's fantastic, and you can play it with 4 players. It's a bit long with 4, but
it's long.
but it's also fantastic. I mean, my favorite game in the world is not the game I've played the most, and I think part of that, my favorite game in the world has a very well regarded app, and I've got a couple of friends at the moment trying to persuade me to get on the app, and I just refuse because when I play my favorite game ever, which is Through the Ages, I want it to be a special experience. And if I get it on an app and it's all very convenient, I'm just going to get burnt out on it. And why should I get burnt out on something I find so valuable, you know?
Yep. Now you've also answered my next question, which was, what's your favorite game?
It's Through the Ages. It's the best board game ever made. There's no argument. It's absolutely clear. There's nothing better than Through the Ages. And if you want to make any other claim, you're wrong.
Well,
There's no well about it, Booghy. There's no well about it. It is the best game ever made. If you have a different opinion, you're wrong. That's science. You can't argue with science.
Well,
you could say well all day. We can have this conversation for the next 7 hours if you wish.
Well,
but I'm not going to change my view. And science isn't going to change its view.
It's your view. It's a great game. It's one great game, and unfortunately, I don't play it enough. I haven't played it enough, and I find it a bear to play with more than 2 players, maybe 3 sometimes.
3 is fine. I think 4 is too many. I agree. I did play it. I played it with 4 players. I went to a con in Portugal in March, and we played it with 4 players. And it took us, and because one of the players was a new player, and kind of demanded that they be good at it, so they were asking a lot of questions on their turn and everything. It ended up taking, I think, 10 hours to play, which is too long to play a game in my view. But with 3 players with people who know the game, you can knock it out in 2.5 hours, I would say.
Yeah, but you really have to know the game. You really have to know the cards. You really have to know what you want outside the fiddliness of the moving cubes.
What did you just say? Fiddliness around Through the Ages. Haven't I already established that it's science? Why do you hate Albert Einstein? I don't get it. It's science.
Because I'm a film director. And
the arts and the sciences should come together. They're not enemies. They should be friends.
Yeah. If I don't know, probably if we would only if this world would be only of scientists, it would be a sadder world.
Oh God, can you imagine if it was only artists though? Nothing would
work.
Yeah. There'd be no sort of social cohesion. It would just be self-obsessed people walking around up to their knees in filth. It would be terrible.
That's right.
I work with artists. I was working with artists yesterday, and, you know, for all of their positive qualities, my God, you wouldn't want them running a society.
Yeah, but actors are a special breed.
Yeah, terrible breed. I agree. That's what you said, right? Actors are a terrible breed. I agree.
No. I said special, not terrible.
They're synonyms in this case, I'm afraid.
I work with actors. I think without actors, whatever I do, it's meaningless. It's useless.
That's the wrong attitude. That is the wrong attitude, Booghy. You should just you should eliminate these terrible, feckless people from your life. Well, it'd be a lot easier.
Yeah. So let's go. What's your favorite? Who's your favorite designer?
So that's interesting because it should be Vlaada Chvátil, right? Because I think he's created the best game that's ever been made. Science, Albert Einstein, and all that. But I think the guy when his games come out, they deliver the most solid experience every time, and they're all fantastic, and they feel innovative, but they're also like fun, and you're able to play them with lots of different people. Is Paolo Mori, I think. I think Paolo Mori is a wonderful designer. I think Blitzkrieg is spectacular. I think Dogs of War is spectacular. I think Libertalia is spectacular, even though Jamie Stegmaier tried to ruin it. He couldn't because it was so good. Paolo Mori makes absolutely Ethnos is great. Really wonderful, light games that feel really innovative. And I'm always excited when a new one from him comes out.
Well, I don't think Paolo Mori comes up in too many lists of
It's fascinating
designers.
because he makes these brilliant games, and whenever you play a Paolo Mori game, I've never seen it fail. It's always great, but I don't know whether it's something to do with the weight
Yeah,
of
yep.
his
I
games,
think
whether
that.
they're just a little light.
Yeah, I think that
People
too.
never talk about him as their favorite designer, but he's so good. He makes such great games.
Yeah, I don't think he ever failed. Ethnos is a good game. Uh,
Yeah, even if you go back to
Blitz.
Vasco da Gama, which is his first game
w-
published
y-
by What's Your Game, it's a
Really
really
good. Yeah,
great.
the game is very good. Yeah, you're right.
I mean, Tom
Yeah,
Vassel's
yeah,
wrong.
very wrong.
Very wrong. Vasco da Gama's great, and yeah, I mean, so many great games, and they're all really, really, really good. More than solid, fantastic. I mean, I don't know if you played Blitzkrieg, but
I
Blitzkrieg is
haven't played Blitzkrieg.
great,
I haven't played,
really
and
good.
I've heard it has a re-implementation.
Yeah, Caesar. Yeah.
Yeah, but what I think he did a lot of simpler family games, party games. I think he did a lot of those. Also, what I what it, the I've played the bingo one,
Oh, Rise of
Rise of
Augustus. Yeah,
Augustus, yeah, which is bingo for gamers,
sure.
which is fun. I haven't
His Pandemic is fantastic.
well, I haven't played it.
It's really good.
I haven't played it. I haven't played it.
Yeah, and he won't come on my show, which is unfortunate. Because he claims, so it's one of those things with people who are non-English speakers, right? So I wrote him an email saying, hey, I really love your stuff. I'd really love you to come on my podcast. And he wrote back an email in perfect English saying, oh, I really don't think my English is good enough. I love your podcast, but I don't think my English is good enough to come on in perfect English. I'm like, of course it's good enough.
Well, I don't have that problem. This is what I have. I'll work with
Oh,
what I have.
your English is wonderful.
Well, I wouldn't say that.
Better than my Romanian, anyway.
Well,
Noroc.
yeah. Cheers. Um, so I will. After this, we're going to have a small questionnaire. But before I end the questionnaire, I want everything I do. I have a certain motto which I really like, which is ignorance. There's no other authority like it.
Right, that's very true. I mean, look at Brexit.
This one was said by Orson Welles a few years ago.
Infamous swinger, Orson Welles. You know, very much on the forefront of sexual experimentation. Orson Welles.
Yeah,
fascinating man.
character. Yeah, and a great director. I think one of.
Oh no, Orson Welles. I'm thinking about H.G. Wells.
Oh, you think
he was the one. He was the swinger. Orson Welles was the one who ate a lot of ice creams. Although absolutely wonderful director. Though I did not like the Magnificent Ambersons. I've got to say, did not get along with it at all.
Because it wasn't done. It wasn't cut by him. It was cut by the.
Well,
studio.
this is true. This is true.
It wasn't his film. It was the studio's film.
That opening shot of Touch of Evil is
yeah.
quite astonishing.
Yep. So
we could talk about films for the next hour if you want.
In another podcast, I would love to do that. Because I don't want to be
sorry to interrupt. Quick subject on films. But the most overrated film of all time, unquestionably, the most overrated film. It barely tells a story. All it is a load of pretty pictures, and it's absolutely the dullest thing. And I revisited it recently to see if I could reappraise it, and it's no doubt the most overrated, boring, barely coherent pile of dog dirt is Blade Runner. It's rubbish.
Yeah, but I'm not a big fan of Blade Runner, so you haven't. Yeah, I haven't seen it. I think in 20 years. More than 20 years.
Yeah, you're not missing anything.
No, I didn't feel like no.
I'm more. Is Decker a droid in real life? I don't care. I don't care whether he's a droid. It feels boring.
I'm more skewed towards Russian films and European films. So.
Yeah, Stalker is better than Blade Runner.
Yeah. Yeah, way better. Stalker. Yeah. Yeah. So I wanted to ask you if you want to say something in the end of this part of the interview.
What do you want me to say?
Whatever I might have missed, something you would have wanted to say.
Well, I touched on it briefly, and I feel like I should. So I'm just about to say I'm known for, which is, I mean, it's not an untrue statement, but it's kind of like saying
Yeah.
I'm known for being the king of my own kitchen. I mean, it's nevertheless.
It's tooting your own horn.
But you know, people within the very small kingdom that I purvey, I'm known as sort of doing interviews and stuff. And I love doing the interviews, and I think they're really good shows, and I think they're really valuable. But as I said, I started almost a year ago now, really, doing live play, role-playing stuff, journaling role-playing stuff, which allows me to indulge in my other great passion, which is writing. And I think they're really good shows. And if you see them, anyone watching this, if you see them on the feed, and it's the RPG one, and you think, oh, I just want to listen to the interviews and skip it, I'd recommend give them a go. You get to hear me talk like an idiot, then you get to hear me sort of write a radio play. And this time I've started a new game, and I released the first gameplay episode on Monday, and I'm rather proud of it. So listen to that, I would say. Or 5gamesfordoomsday.com. Go to the bottom of the page. There's a PayPal link. Give me some cash. Okay. I don't give a monkey's whether you listen to anything I produce, but back me on Patreon.
Yeah. So now we're gonna go to a fast questionnaire, which I blatantly stole from.
Okay, nice.
From it is a questionnaire which derives from the one from Proust, then Bernard Pivot.
Oh my God, this is high class stuff.
And then James Lipton stole it, and I will stole it from James Lipton.
I'm never gonna be James. I guess James Lipton's dead now, isn't he?
Yeah, I think.
I was never gonna get on the Actors Studio anyway.
No? That's what
but I tell you,
that's what I thought.
There's one episode of the Actors Studio that is, I think, unmissable for anybody, and that's the Dustin Hoffman episode. It is something else.
I say unmissable is no, I think it is yeah, Dustin Hoffman is nice, but the actor and comedian who died 2014 of an overdose, Robin Williams. Yeah, that for a lot of people I think it is unmissable. He shows the true size of his talent there.
Sure.
The true
He's
size.
almost as good as me, Robin Williams.
Almost. So let's start with the questionnaire. What's your favorite word?
What's the language? What's the language requirement on this show, Booghy? Am I allowed to swear?
Yes.
Oh, fuck is my favorite word.
Yeah, that's your favorite.
Hands down, it's the best word of the English language.
It can have a lot of meanings.
It is the multi-tool of the English language. The word fuck. It's wonderful.
What is your least favorite word?
Oh God, that's a difficult one, isn't it? Least favorite word. I think at the moment my least favorite word is problematic.
What turns you on creatively, emotionally, spiritually?
Spiritually, almost nothing, because God clearly doesn't exist, and it's a con perpetrated by con artists for the last 4,000 years of human existence. And the fact is, you know, if you're someone who purveys a lie, you should be roundly socially condemned for it. So spiritually, not really very much. There's nothing like a good sentence. There are some writers that are just able to write a sentence that is, and it's not Proust, by the way, because my God, his sentences. I got one page into À la recherche de Tom Perdue, and I went, I'll do this when I'm retired, when I got more time. Um, uh, but there's something about a well-constructed sentence. It's something that I aspire to every time I sit down to write, and that's really, really exciting. Or just something very well done. Interviewing Stefan Feld once, getting it onto board games, he said, I don't like doing expansions for my games because I want them to be perfect the first time round, and that's exciting.
Yeah, to aim for. Yep.
Exactly.
What turns you off?
Dogmatism, I think, primarily. There is both in all kind of meanings. I think currently our debate is steered a lot by American thought, and I think American thought is often quite poor. And I think both on the right of the American political spectrum and on the left of the American political spectrum, there's a lot of dogmatism and a lot of really sort of entrenched ideas about who the other side are that kind of don't map onto reality, and it's causing a lot of problems for all of us. So yeah, dogmatism really turns me off.
And now, what's your favorite curse word?
Well, I mean, I don't consider fuck a curse word particularly. No. I consider it because it's more than that. It's not simply about swearing. It's about emphasis. It's about thought. It's about everything. No, cunt is the best curse word. No question. It's a great. You can use it. In a familiar, friendly context, if you're British at least, and you can use it with all the invective that it has in. It's a brilliant word. It's a brilliant word, and a good old traditional old English word too.
Yeah.
So all the sort of far right nationalists should be saying cunt a lot more because it's the origin. It's from the original language. Don't say vagina, that Italian nonsense. Say cunt.
What sound or noise do you love?
This is obvious. This is very easy to answer. It is the sound of sitting in a tent and hearing rain fall on the tent. It is, or the sound of unzipping the door of a tent. It's so evocative. I just got back from camping last weekend, and it's the best way to live.
What sound or noise do you hate?
That when people go, but hate it.
Which profession outside the one you already are doing would you like to attempt?
I often thought I wanted to do something. I have absolutely no skill with my hands, but something that is really kind of requires an intense amount of skill. So Daniel Day-Lewis, because he's nothing if not the most pretentious man in the world, went off and lived in Italy and trained to be a cobbler for 5 years. Yep. And something like that, I'd love to be a really good kind of single workshop, one person in the workshop carpenter. I think that would be, to be able to make just a beautiful, useful table would be amazing. I mean, I'm never going to be able to do it, but that would be fantastic.
To see something coming out of your own hands.
Yeah, but it's also exquisite as well. Not just a knockoff, just something that takes me 3 months to produce, and it's made from walnut burr, and it's absolutely glorious, and then I can charge £9 million for it.
So it all comes back to money, huh?
Absolutely.
Yeah. I thought you wanted to say you want to be a scientist.
I don't have that kind of brain. I admire scientists incredibly, but I don't have that kind of brain, unfortunately.
IT programmer.
I mean, just for the money, but my God, I mean, all of my friends who are computer programmers seem to hate it. So yeah, I can live without that. I can live without sitting in an office. I mean, having a workshop. Imagine this, you live in a little village, and your view from your workshop is rolling hills and sort of cows ambling by, and all you smell every day is the smell of sawdust and pine resin. I mean, it just sounds like a hell of a life, doesn't it?
Yeah. Well, if you could only, if yeah, but you need you have to go back to the earth, and
Mm,
you have to live. You'll need the money.
right. I mean, you need the money, unfortunately.
Yeah.
I can't wait till UBI comes in, and then I can watch YouTube all day.
So, what profession outside the one you already have would you not want to attempt?
I mean, loads of them, loads of them. I think the one that it potentially has the most positive impact, but is the one that is riven with the most, I think, heartbreaking compromise is politics, right?
Yeah.
I think so many. If you look at America, America's a great example of. No, let's don't screw America. It's dysfunctional. If you go to Britain at the moment, I'm not a conservative, but I think so many conservative politicians at the moment are being forced to hold their nose for one of the most despicable human beings to ever hold the office, and I think that has to be hugely demoralizing. The beautiful thing about being an artist, a creative artist, is you can sort of put your viewpoints and your ideas for a better world forward without compromising them. Now, of course, they don't have any effect whatsoever, but God, can you imagine having to go, no, Boris Johnson is a good and honest man? I mean, can you imagine it? I
Uh,
mean, it must just
yeah,
slice your soul.
I don't think you can say that about any politician. The
Well, I'm not as cynical about politicians as many people are. I think a lot of them are good people trying to do good things, but the
the
system the
system is
system is designed to sort of
exactly.
make them compromise in unfortunate ways at times. But
So I don't think if you really want to go into politics and you really want to go all the way, you won't be clean.
certainly, but also, I think
You,
I think we the problem is we come out of a religious tradition where sort of the leaders in religious tradition are always perfect because religion is fantasy, and so I think a little bit of smuts isn't a problem. We're human beings. We're imperfect. Everyone is tainted in some way. You just have to decide. I think there are people who have come out of politics, and of course you could say, "Oh, what about this? What about this?" But it's a relative thing, right? And I think there are certain people who are it's unforgivable, and I think certain people. I mean, it's a human system. You're never going to come out of it clean. It's
yeah.
just how dirty you come out of it.
Well, the discussion is long, but I think that these days, as you say, we come out of a religious past. Um, no matter how, I mean, with media today and everything, they will find you that small um, uh, thing that you did, and they can step on you. They will step on you, and you
Yeah, but
might
I
be finished.
I think we need to change our priorities, right? If someone says something off the cuff, does not mean they're an evil person. If someone falls in love with someone that isn't their husband or wife, doesn't mean they're an evil person. If someone likes at the weekend to put things in their nose,
Yeah,
doesn't mean doesn't
that
mean they're an evil person. We just need to change our priorities,
we
I
need to
think.
change perspectives on a big percentage of the people of the
And also,
world.
fundamentally, politicians aren't. This idea that politicians should be the great moral,
The popes,
great morally upstanding. They're
the
not religious
priests.
figures.
Yeah, the priests.
Okay.
Yep.
Can they run the country well? Do they have good intentions for the people in the country? It has nothing to do with what they do with their genitals or what they put into their body, as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, and yeah, also you don't really know how good a person is until he gets that power.
And also, I may be a sort of sappy optimist, but
You are.
I think broadly speaking, people are kind of fine. I've met a lot of people in my life, and very few of them that I've thought, "Wow, you're a really nasty piece of work." Most of them are just people doing what everyone is doing, struggling to get through the day as unscathed as possible. And I
Yeah,
think
yeah,
I think the media landscape forces us to other people and make them into sort of non-humans. You see it with celebrities, you see it with footballers, you see it with politicians, and I think if we can be a bit more compassionate and understand that even politicians are people who are just trying to get through the day as unscathed as possible, and most of them are in it to help, then
Yeah.
then. But it's clearly. I mean, I don't know what the political situation is in Romania, right? But like, I live in Germany, and the thing is, with Germany, the system works. It's unquestionable. The system works. There are things. It's not perfect, of course, and there are things you can
No
fix.
system is perfect.
But the roads are great. There's not huge amounts of crime. There's not huge amounts of poverty, and the system works, and we should always continue to improve. But I live in a country that is a vindication of parliamentary democracy, and I don't see many. And I've met German politicians, and they all seem like people who are just trying to do the decent thing. So
Yeah, well, what do they rely on creating the economy that they have? They rely on bigger markets outside their country where they can sell things. Where are these
well, I mean, this
markets?
is this is
Where?
this is this is true. This is true. And as I say, nothing is perfect, and things can improve. But
Yeah,
by and large, I think this cynicism. I think the problem is with the cynicism about politics and politicians. Firstly, I don't think it's true, and secondly, the end result is Boris Johnson and Donald Trump. If you're going to be that cynical, these are the people that end up getting in power. And so our obligation as citizens is to maintain our democracy and to vote against the fascist. And we've been doing a terrible job of it of recent times, I think.
yeah. Well, the discussion is way more complicated and long. So my last question is,
Okay.
and this is, I think this is a good one for you. If,
If
because you have touched on it, if heaven exists,
yeah, okay.
what do you expect God to say to you when you arrive at the pearly gates?
If heaven exists,
If-
what I expect
yeah.
what I expect God to say is, I am so sorry. I am so sorry that I am such a malicious, vindictive bastard that gives kids cancer, that causes endless pain and suffering for people who don't deserve it. I am absolutely massively sorry that I have, throughout human history, engendered a system that allows the psychotic and the violent to rule while the decent and the thoughtful are crushed. I am so sorry that I have not done anything to become involved in the grand injustice that is human society over all this time, and that you poor sods have had to fix it yourself against the violent and the psychotic. And I apologize, and I resign. And I'll leave it to someone far better qualified if heaven exists. But of course, it doesn't.
And with that, I want to thank you. Ben.
Yeah, thank you, Booghy. It was great.
Uh,
You do know Booghy has a different meaning in English, right?
No.
It's the thing. So it's the thing you pick out
A
of your
booger?
nose.
A booger?
Exactly. In English, it's a bogey. Just letting you know whether you want to adopt my pronunciation of your name or stick with yours. I'm just saying. I'm just saying.
Well, let it be a small one or a big one. Who cares? As long as, in the end, as long as the content is good, I'll go with whichever suits
Exactly.
the people. Thank you again, Ben. It was a great pleasure to have you here and to have this
And
discussion.
just think of it this way: whoever you have on next, it's got to be better than this car crash. So it's got to be fantastic.
It was great. It was great.
And by the way, are you trying to hone in on my area? Because I will send some guys around to break your legs.
I don't think you have the manpower to do that.
You know nothing.
And I don't think they'll come all the way to Berlin here. So
No, I know some Romanians in Berlin. I'll just get them to have chats.
nah, they're good.
And we'll
They're
send
good
some
people.
guys around.
They're good people. Yeah, thank you, sir. It was fun. I hope it was fun also for you. We had
Yeah, sure.
wonderful. You had a wonderful time here on the comfy virtual game room and virtual
Indeed.
comfy chairs. And I hope we'll see each other in some other
in real life at some point.
Yep.
Yeah, absolutely. And hopefully by then you will have cured yourself of some of your cynicism about politics.
You have to come to live in Romania. Then I will allow you to speak about
Okay.
politicians. You and your wonderful world there in Germany. Come here. Okay, sir. Thank you again. I will end this with a small outro. I want to thank everyone who come and watched us live. I hope you had fun listening or watching this. For everyone who watches after the fact, thank you. If you like what you see, please like, share, and subscribe because it keeps the internet alive, and because it will show that YouTube algorithm that you like what happens here, and the YouTube algorithm will show you what is in here. And until next time, I will say play a lot. This is what it says here. Play loads, as you British say. Have fun, and goodbye world, wherever you are. Phew. Let's say stop streaming. Let me